Europe is called the Old World. However, it is not because the continent is older than the others. The reason for that name is cultural, not geological. Europe is renowned for its splendid capitals and rich culture. We take for granted the European blend of antique, medieval, and ultra-modern architecture. In fact, it's the result of 3,000 years of history. In the process, new cities, whole empires, and civilizations have appeared and vanished. We rarely think about our origins. So let's go back some 10 centuries and consider the circumstances. There was no Moscow back then, no Berlin, Prague, Amsterdam, Brussels, Warsaw, and none of the northern capitals. In the year Christ was born, only 9 of today's European capitals existed, and in 753 BC, Anno Urbis Conditiae, the year that Romulus founded the Eternal City, only 2 of today's capitals could be found on the map of Europe, Athens and Sofia.
My name is Terry. I was born in London, but I've lived here for about a decade. I am a Sophian. Sofia is my city. This city's European atmosphere, its Mediterranean spirit makes me feel Celtic, Roman, Thracian, Hellenic. But above all, I feel cosmopolitan. Sofia is ancient, but it hasn't grown old. It's grown extremely wise, like the translation of its name from the Greek, God's wisdom. I've invited Maretta, a friend from Denmark, to visit Sofia. She arrives today. Most foreigners enter Sofia along Brussels Boulevard, which is named after one of the youngest European capitals. Sofia, or Serdica, is only about 1,700 years older than Brussels.
During the Neolithic period, 5,000 years ago, there used to exist 2 settlements in place of today's Sofia. Later, the ancient town of Serdica appeared through the mists of time. In the 4th century BC, the Macedonian army of Philip II conquered Serdica. Later, Alexander the Great governed it as well. We find proof of the city's importance in the fact that Ptolemy mentioned it in his treatises in the 1st century AD.
So, Serdica conformed to all the major requirements of a Roman city. What you're looking at here, the Decumanus Maximus, the main east-west road in Serdica. The legions marched along these stones with deadly battles with barbarians, and the Emperor Constantine marched back this way to his palace.
I see. You're talking about the Emperor Constantine, who moved the capital of the Roman Empire to Constantinople. He lived here.
That's right. Constantine the Great was in love with Serdica. Legend has it that he had the intention to set up the capital here. It's said that he once claimed, "Serdica is my Rome." So, these are the remains of the old palace complex. It's also known as the Quarter of Constantine. These strange tiles are actually part of the building's heating system. I mean, we're talking 5th century here, you know, when the Romans were thrown out of London by the hordes of barbarians coming from the east.
Let me introduce you to the archaeologist Todor Chobanov.
This is Maretta.
Please, this way. Among the Roman emperors, Constantine was the most important for the development of Europe. In 313 AD, he issued the Edict of Milan, which stopped the persecution of Christians. Christianity became a recognized religion.
Suddenly, the empire that had crucified Christ began spreading his religion. Constantine's favorite city became the seat of a bishop and one of the first cities in the world with Christian high officials.
This is the oldest functioning church in Europe and one of the oldest in the world, the St. George Rotunda. It was already functioning in 326 AD when the Empress Helena founded and built a church on the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. The church there was destroyed by the Muslims in 1009.
The temple in Constantine's palace. It was built of red bricks at the beginning of the 4th century. There are 5 layers of frescoes preserved inside. The first one features images of flowers. It is a Byzantine layer from the 4th century. On top of it, there are 3 layers with Bulgarian frescoes. Angels from the 10th century form the Ascension of Jesus, from the 11th to the 12th century, and a Cathedral, portrait of a bishop from the 14th century. The 5th layer features Ottoman designs from the time when the temple was used as a mosque. In Sofia, the town plans from Roman times are preserved even today. The presidency building rises above Constantine's complex. Across the street is the building of the Council of Ministers. This remains the place where all power is concentrated. Next is Decumanus Maximus. Today, the main Roman road merges into the prestigious Bulgarian street, Vitosha. And where now stands the imposing Court of Justice building, there used to be the Roman Forum. Up until the 9th century, Serdica remained Roman or Byzantine. The Byzantine Empire is a literary concept. It was first used in Europe in the 16th century to denote the Eastern Roman Empire. Serdica first became a Bulgarian city in 809, during the rule of Khan Krum, and was renamed Sredets. It was from the Bulgarian lands that the most popular pre-Christian cult started, the cult of the Horsemen, widely spread during the rule of the Roman Severan dynasty. It was during the Severan reign that the fall of the Roman Empire began. These emperors laid the foundations of the future bureaucratic military and monarchy, which replaced the Roman Republic. The horseman is a symbol of substituting the polytheism of antiquity for the cult of one image, one cult, one emperor.
Now these votive tablets, they're found all over the Roman Empire, from Britain to Syria. But here, archaeologists found massive numbers of them in a very limited area, which means the cult originated here.
Serdica had enormous importance for the development of Christianity. The St Sophia Church is one of the most significant temples in the city.
The Church of St Sophia is almost contemporary to the Church of St George, younger by no more than about 40 years. In fact, bits of mosaic found inside date back to the middle of the 4th century.
In 343 AD, 318 bishops convened here during the Serdica Council. For a while, Serdica was the spiritual capital of the world.
You know, there are not many places in the world where there are so many saints gathered together. Come on, let me show you. So, Father, what did the Serdica Council mean to the development of Christianity?
The initial intention was to hold an ecumenical council here, where the hostile bishops of the East and the West would reconcile.
But it didn't happen that way. During the Serdica Council, the first version of the Nicene Creed was ratified.
The construction of the church lasted 1,600 years. Today's appearance dates back to the rule of Justinian the Great, the last emperor to rule over the whole of the Roman Empire.
I believe there is a crypt below, and I've heard that archaeologists keep uncovering new sepulchres and catacombs. During the Serdica Council, the bishops exculpated Saint Athanasius the Great, who had previously been dethroned as Bishop of Alexandria. Most probably the church was initially intended as a cemetery, but during the Second Bulgarian Kingdom, it received the status of a bishop's cathedral.
With respect to architecture, it resembles the St Alexander Nevsky Cathedral.
Which is where we're going next. The largest Orthodox church on the Balkan Peninsula, St Alexander Nevsky, is the Patriarchal Cathedral of the Bulgarians. It was designed by a Russian architect, but it looks nothing like a Russian church. After the liberation of Bulgaria from the Ottoman rule, there was a call in Sofia for the return to the Byzantine legacy. The Nevsky Cathedral was constructed in a Neo-Byzantine style. The central dome and the bell tower dome are slated with pure gold. A rich collection of priceless icons are kept in the crypt. The cathedral itself is constructed with extremely expensive materials of the highest quality: Italian marble, onyx from Brazil, and alabaster.
So the dome here is 45 meters high, and if you look around the side, you can see that the gold lettering is actually the Lord's Prayer. Yeah, and it's possible to have up to 5,000 people gathered in this space. And here is the Bulgarian Tsar's thrones, and this one is the Patriarch's throne over here.
It is interesting to know that no Bulgarian monarch has ever used the thrones, although Bulgaria has had 3 Tsars in its modern history. The first one, Ferdinand, was the grandson of the last French king, Louis Philippe. It was during Ferdinand's rule that the cathedral was built. He was forced to abdicate after World War I, and the church was inaugurated 2 years later. Ferdinand's son, Boris III, would rather stand before the thrones, and the last Bulgarian Tsar, Simeon II, was a minor when the communists forced him out of the country. The church choir of Alexander Nevsky was where Boris Christos' amazing career started. He is often called the greatest basso profundo of the second half of the 20th century. The bell tower is 53 meters high. There are 12 bells altogether, the largest weighing 12 tons and the smallest 10 kilograms. The bell's combined weight is 23 tons. They were cast in Moscow and later transported to Bulgaria. From here you can see all of downtown Sofia, the parliament, the monument of the Russian Emperor Alexander II, who led the Russian troops